January 1st, 2016, New Year's Day, and I've been inspired by my friend Robert Murray Smith from England to do an experiment on video. I've been doing this experiment for actually about 4 years at least, but the experiment is a long-term test to see if I could cover the mountain community where we are with Wi-Fi for a very reasonable price instead of everybody having to buy a cable, or, well, cable's not available, I mean a satellite contract, which would not only cost a lot, you would not be using it most of the time, since a lot of people are not at their cabins full time, they're vacation cabins. Okay, so I've been setting up this system so that from the valley, which I'll now show you, in our mountain community that's 7,000 feet up, here's a cabin where it's on the edge of the huge San Joaquin Valley. And I beam a signal from the valley 30 miles away up to this antenna, which I hope you can see. That one is 5 gigahertz. I tried lower frequencies to begin with to be able to send Wi-Fi frequencies, 2.4 gigahertz, directly up here to begin with. And that does not work very well over those kind of distances. Originally it was a shorter distance, but there were other problems with that. So 5 gigahertz works quite well. That was not the most challenging part of this. The most challenging part is we are in a sequoia grove. Sequoia trees, 2,000 years old, 300 feet tall. They are very tall antennas, basically, going to ground. So they just suck up Wi-Fi and just obliterate it. So I had to figure out a way to transmit the signal from this cabin to our mile-long community, which wraps around the mountain ridge as well. So that's quite difficult. It takes something else. So I had to move to 900 megahertz, which can much better handle foliage. However, it's still challenging here because there's a lot of foliage that has good grounds. So anyways, this is where I set up the receiving point. As I say, here I used to have a very complex firewall system, but that was problematic. I had a advanced PF Sense device here, low power, which I really wanted to do because I wanted this whole thing to not take too much. And another at my home in San Diego. We're in Central California right now. So those two systems allowed me to have lots of power, look at the system in real time, see what was going on, if there were problems, to try to correct them, remote control of power strips, all sorts of things, so that I could cycle power on all the units and everything. This all became very difficult when I was also having failover. I also had another antenna, that one, which was beaming to another location in the valley in case the first went out. Again, very problematic because that's a remote location where the other site was going, and getting a good internet connection to that site was more difficult than the other antenna. So when one would fail over, the other would take over. However, there are many problems that can happen with that. If you ping a particular website to verify your connection too many times, sometimes the server administrator will become suspicious, wonder what's going on, and just shut it down. Well, suddenly your system thinks it's got to fail over. The second also goes down after it starts pinging a lot more. So you end up with a down system, even though you still have an internet gateway at the bottom, or even two, that are working perfectly fine. So I took out all that equipment and simplified the whole thing to just a single router with Tomato in it, which is a really good free open source router replacement for like Linksys routers, just an old standard Linksys router. And the power over Ethernet connector, power for those two antennas that you saw outside, and a power strip. That's all this is now. This entire shelf used to be filled with equipment. So I've greatly reduced it down. Now I will tell you about the other parts of the system and network in the next video if you're still interested. Probably the only people that are going to be are the people who actually need to do Wi-Fi in a forest, which can be very challenging. All right, let's see, last thing I was going to say is, the biggest experiment I'm going to be doing right at this moment is I have a large 900 megahertz antenna that was meant to cover the entire south part of the crest. That's our community here. As I said, it's about a mile long and wraps around a mountain. So I had split it up into 3 sectors, and I had one entire sector that was being covered by a huge 3-foot tall 900 megahertz antenna. But interference from it, because it was such a good strong signal, was obliterating the rest of the network in the other locations when it was acting as a AP. So I will tell more about that and show how I'm adding shielding to that in the next video, and we'll see if it works. Thanks for listening. Hope you see part 2 if you're interested.